Welcome everyone to our educational webinar and thank you guys for joining. Today's webinar topic is Enhance Your Design Workflow with NX CAD Surfacing. My name is Mason Wu. I am the Business Development Engineer from AT Engineering. I'm based off in our San Diego office. Very happy to be here, joined by Mike Sanadiak from Siemens, who is a subject matter expert on basically all the NX products. He will be the one presenting the topic today. Before we dive into the actual content, just some housekeeping notes. All attendees will be muted throughout the webinar. If you have any questions, type them into the chat and we'll have Mike answer them at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and available on our website later on and on our ATA YouTube channel. So before I hand this to Mike, just want to give a few quick slide overview of AT Engineering, introducing who we are and how we might be able to help you support your team in the future. So most people recognize ATA as an engineering service company. That's about 80% of what we do. So our core founders have been together for almost 40 years, helping customers solve their difficult design challenges. We really focus on the high value engineering services, and majority of our business are in the aerospace and defense industry. That's about 70% of what we do, but we also work on other industries, as you can see on the slide. About who we are an employee-owned small business with a full-time staff just over 200 people. Most of our staff have an advanced engineering degree, as you can see on the right, and almost over 70% of them even have a higher degree as a master or a PhD. We have 9 regional offices across the US, and as I've mentioned before, years and years of experience focusing on helping customers solve design challenges with analysis and tests. And this includes everything from, structure design, dynamics, thermal, vibroacoustic, CFD, and more. Test-wise, we are the leading independent modal test group in the US. We have lots of experience flying our team to your testing article location and conduct ground vibration testing and use that information to help drive the model design. So we have talked about the 80% of what the ATA service business. And aside from that, the other 20% is how most of you joining today knows about ATA. We are a Siemens VAR, value-added reseller, who not only sells the product, but also provides software support and training to you. We really focus on products and solutions that we use primarily on design, analysis, and tests. For example, you have NX for design, VMAP, Star CCM Plus, SimCenter 3D for simulation, and testing-wise, we are one of the Siemens partners in the US that can provide Siemens SimCenter testing hardware and software. And just very recently, ATA was awarded as Partner of the Year in 2024 in North America from Siemens, just showing our dedication to support our customers. What sets ATA apart from other Siemens resellers is that we sell what we use. So our customer really appreciate our familiarity of these tools and really shows in our hotline support. Every time you call our hotline, you are actually speaking with a ATA project engineers who use the software every single day and understand your problem instantly and can do a screen share right away. Additionally, we teach a variety of classes, primarily dealing with simulations. We generated all the Siemens training material for the Nastran software. So a lot of times when you want to go get an online courses from the Siemens website on a Nastran course, you are actually seeing that either in Denver or San Diego, because that's 2 of the ATA locations. We're the one teaching it. So this slide is an interesting slide, showcase the ATA and Siemens partnership over the years. It started with a company called SDRC, which developed a popular PLM tool called Ideas. And at the time, ATA was part of SDRC, and with ATA standing for Advanced Test and Analysis Division, in 2000, we spun off from SDRC, became ATA Engineering, and continuing to focus on delivering high-quality engineering services and testing. to our customers. And after a series of acquisitions, SDRC was eventually acquired by Siemens, and the IDEAS software was integrated with the Unigraphics, which later became the well-known NX product line. And in 2007, because we use so many of the Siemens tool, this is ATA engineering, Siemens asked if we are interested in becoming a Siemens partner to help support our customers who needs software assistance. We accepted the offer and became one of the Siemens VAR. And in 2016, our VAR business really grew, and we achieved Gold Partner status around the time Siemens acquired CD Adapco, which is the company behind the famous CFD tool called Star CCM Plus. And because we love and use Star so much, in 2018, we became one of the first Siemens partner to sell and support Star, and also achieving the platinum status. And in 2021, we became the first partner authorized to sell and support Siemens test and measurement hardware and software. And finally, fast forwarding to today, we are working on providing more and more training and free resources for Siemens tool for our customers, just like this webinar. So we hope that you enjoy what we are doing. All right, last slide before I hand it to Mike. I want to encourage people to visit our ATA website. It has our hotline support information. Actually, we just did a revamp on the website, so you'll see a different design. It has our hotline support information, which is one of the unique advantage getting your software from ATA, and free resources, including the past webinars, APIs, white papers, everything you can think of will be able to be downloaded. With that being said, I want to introduce Mike Sanadek. He is a partner solution consultant and team leader for Siemens with over 26 years of experience, a subject matter expert for NX CAD, and oversees resources related to CAD, CAM, Solid Edge, and SimCenter 3D. Take it away, Mike.
Great, thank you, Mason. All right, can you see our agenda slide okay?
Yes, I can see it.
Great, thank you. So welcome everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Mason had reached out to me and requested some help with a NX servicing overview for everyone. So here's a little look at our agenda over the next 45 minutes. We'll just start out just to level set with you guys where this fits into our Siemens Xcelerator portfolio. And then we'll focus in on NX as our mechanical design solution. And we'll talk about a couple key areas. One, what are some of the tools, advanced tools for doing concept development? We'll cover a number of our advanced surfacing tools, and then just show how that being a unified platform, how you can take your concept designs, your advanced surfacing, and drive that into detailed design and your automatic updates. So with that, then we'll close out, just give you some idea of what our customers are doing with the software and how to get started. And then finally, just provide you the value of having these additional tools available to you. So with that, if you're not familiar with Siemens Xcelerator, that is our portfolio that we have of all of our software solutions. And so what we have here is we cover everything from the mechanical design, which you might expect from us, but things like electronics design, simulation, manufacturing, operations, and then obviously the data management side of all of that. So how to collaborate and run your business with our tools. So it really is a comprehensive set of solutions that give you the best digital twin in the industry. And so with that, we're always trying to improve, the user interface, user experience that you get from not just NX, but our entire portfolio. And then always keep in mind that, our objective is to be flexible and open. Our ecosystem is, we'd love you to have everything within the Siemens Xcelerator portfolio, but understand that at times we're going to have to mix and match with other vendors and be able to work together. And so where that comes together then for us is NX is our flagship mechanical design product. And we'll be focusing in on the industrial design and styling, but know that it is a multidiscipline platform. So we do a lot of mechanical, but we also do things for electrical, for very industry specific applications, and then also a lot around industrial machinery. So the automation tools that NX has. So we thought we'd start out with just give you a peek at, concept development. What are some of the things that you could do with that? So one of the tools and capabilities that we have is a subdivision modeling tool. So if you've never seen this or worked with this, this is our realized shape. And so the power of this is going to be evident here as we go through the demonstration, but it's being able to quickly develop your concept designs and be able to use that information as you go into detailed design and downstream operations. And it's very, well, I'll say not only is it easy to use, but it's intuitive. Watch, through the demonstration, you're going to see how quickly you can get up and going with this tool. And so without further ado, let's jump into that, right? So take a look. So inside of our surfacing, there is the realized shape. So part of the thing you can do is you can start with different primitive shapes, whether they be spheres, cylinders, cones, boxes. You can start with that shape. And so we're using some images in the back to help us for scale. But the power of this is that you start with that simple shape and then start to transform that, morph that into the product that you would like to design. And so the transform cage is very powerful because it has the drag handles for the user. They can go in, not only move it, but size it, scale it, do things like that. Also things to help divide up the cage that you're working from. So by doing that, we can put in areas of interest. So in this case, on the tail end of the aircraft, we're going in and scaling and sizing based on that. So you have all of those controls, both from a face, from edges, from points, all those different selections that you can do in here. And what you'll notice is I'm not starting with a sketch. I'm not lofting anything. We'll get to some of those tools later, but in this case, the realized shape is so powerful in that I don't need to develop any of that. I'm using this cage to drive that. So if I need more detail, I split it up, I divide it up into more sections. As I go and start to drag and push and pull, it's just the speed. And I think as you see this short demo that we go through, it would be very difficult for you to create all of those cross sections and loft all those surfaces and trim and blend as quickly as you can do it with realized shape. It's extremely powerful and very easy, again, for you to get started. So you can see just by grabbing the different areas of the cage, using the drag handles to manipulate that and move that around, you can see how easy we can start to develop the shapes, based upon some of the renderings that we have underneath it. And so again, it's not requiring sketches. It's not requiring, anything like that. We're just using these primitive shapes and geometries to generate the final shape of our product. And so things like, taking one of those faces of the cage and be able to extrude that out for the wings, right? So being able to size that and move that appropriately. So, just a different idea, different concept for how you tackle industrial design and styling. So this, as you can see, understand why is it called subdivision modeling. You can see by dividing up the cage, putting more definition into it, hence the name, subdivision modeling. And so not only can you work, with specific areas of this, but you can also take advantage, as we will here in a moment, the symmetric modeling, right? So if I have, I don't want to have to repeat those same steps on the other side to create the other wing. I'd like to just use the symmetry and drive that to the other side of this particular craft that we're laying out. And so very simple, just like you would do, it just needs to understand where is that symmetry plane. And so as I continue to go through things of splitting up the wing into more segments that I want to define, using the transform cage a lot more, There are ways that if you want to merge faces back together or even just subdivide a segment within a face, you can do those things. It also does support where we can do things where we can use our studio spline, we can use some simple lofting of surfaces and use this same methodology to transform it, adjust it, adapt it, and so very quickly to help us develop the shape that we want. But that's a little bit about using this methodology and going through with realized shape. And again, you can see how quickly we can get there to that finished type shape. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea there using realized shape. So with that, and again, we didn't go into too deep on that particular demo, but you can basically use that downstream in your detailed design. So if we wanted to add additional features, if we want to do all of that, that's fine. You can work with it that way. It also is a feature in the history tree that you can go back to. So it does update, it does drive based on any changes there. But the next step then is into some of our advanced surface modeling. So NX, with the different levels of service that you might purchase, the initial ones allow you to sketch, use the spline, loft surfaces, some basic, through curves and things like that, some simple sweeps and things like that. But as you move on and more detailed, surfacing, the advanced surfacing tools are really helpful as you get there. So it really allows us to take it to the next level with continuity, the different controls that you might need on your surfaces. If you're doing Class A surfacing or if you're doing aircraft development, you want to have that next level of shape control. So there's a lot that we'll go through in these two examples to show you what some of those advanced functions are that you might get as you move up in the service level of NX. So other things that are really important is being able to analyze, the curves or splines, looking at the curvature comb, surface quality, reflections, different images that you might want to reflect off of that. So all of those things. And so again, what you'll see in NX is us providing an environment that covers all the bases. You don't need a special tool for the concept design. That's in NX. We can use those features. Same thing here with advanced surfacing. All of it is the same data model. So you're not continually having to jump in and out of tools, translate things, rework things. All of it is in one environment for you. So a little bit of a storyboard that we'll walk through here is, we have this little remote control helicopter example. We're going to go through and just show how we can start from scratch, build up some of the curves, check some of those curves for continuity and everything, and then show you just a bunch of different functions that go through that. Then we'll move on. We're not going to get into a lot of the plastic part design, but you'll see, we'll review how we got there and then really show you through the design changes is where we'll go. So we'll take a look and start out with this. So with the end in mind, you can obviously do all the photorealistic rendering. So all of the materials and lighting and backgrounds and logos and stickers and things like that. You can go ahead and do all of that for your marketing and that with your finished design. But this is the example that we want to walk through. And so the key thing as we start building through this is just that ability to develop all the surfaces. So you'll obviously see the difference between this and realized shape is where we're going in and using splines and sketches and a lot of more parameters driven to drive the shape that we're going to work on here. So in this particular example, what we want to do is work in the context of the assembly. We want to create that new body design for this particular model year. And with that, we want to be able to make sure that everything that we have, all the battery pack and all of that still fits inside of the case that we're working on. So with this, as I mentioned, you have, the splines that you can lay out. So you can do by points or by poles. you have this ability then to turn on and off the the curvature combs, and that way it also helps you understand, how good of a spline are we creating, how are we doing as we lay those out, and again, quickly turn those on and off to get that real-time feedback as I make adjustments to this. And so as we create these, we'll have areas where we want to maybe connect the different splines that we have out there. So once we get this last section of the boom laid out, we can then go in and do some of the bridge curves and things like that to help us. So all the different curve types too, right? So you don't actually have to be in a sketching environment. We're just in our 2D development. The bridge curves are really powerful because it gives you all of the connectivity. So from G0 to G3, so whether you want curvature, tangency, and such, those also help us create good surfaces out of this process. And so again, as you select them, the user gets that real-time feedback. So by completing the steps, and again, if you're familiar with NX, the dialogues are already driven by, hey, there's a little red asterisk. Those are things you have to complete. And then when you've satisfied that, you'll see the green check marks there. So not only in the dialogue, but then also on the screen. And so there was a different way to show that continuity. We saw that there were no breaks in that spline that may cause us to have poor surface quality. Other things when you're sketching, not only can you pick faces and datums and things like that, but a good one here as you're doing a lot of surfacing work is the on path. So with that, I can move that anywhere along there and go ahead and generate where do I want to create that sketch geometry. So you saw me do some freehand work, but here I want to actually have some that I can control with some parameters to do some different sizing for this particular tail end of the RC helicopter. So what's nice with these are, it's not just putting it out there, it's, intersecting with some of the other geometry so that if we make changes to that, the geometry and the shape that we have here, it will maintain and be connected to that so that we don't break that downstream. So here I'm just creating a reference rectangle for me to put in the shape that I want. And so you'll see things like our quick pick. You'll see things like as we right mouse button there, it will give me the kind of continuity. So I can select those right as I'm going through. You don't have to go back and put that on later, and it'll define that as you go. So with that, that will be the shape that we're actually going to, sweep along those guide curves that we created there. And so some of it can be reference geometry, some of it can be your finished geometry. And again, as we're working, you can work in surfaces, you can work in solids, the 2D geometry, all of that inside the NX environment. And so it just gives you that flexibility to get the job done. And that's where having some of these additional surfacing tools like Studio Surface, it just makes it easier to generate the shape that you want, control the shape. So as you look on this Studio Surface, what we'll notice is we'll be able to do things again like the continuity. You have those menus to adjust, and those are built into many of the commands that we'll work with. And so as you see, we've gotten enough done with the raster images. If you want to have those in to use as reference, you can also put a grid on the back that you can snap to. So however you need to develop the geometry, we have those capabilities in NX. So here are also some things that, when you're doing anything that is symmetric, you want to make sure over those interface planes, you want to make sure things are good and smooth across there. And so sometimes, you can create reference geometry. We'll use this to make the selection when we create this next segment of the surface. That way it will maintain that tangency across there, the curvature across there. So again, getting good high quality surface. So with this, you have our snap options, right, as you're creating. So here we have just a point location. In the back, we're selecting on the surface that we can use. So any of those to help us in building, in this case, a 3D spline. What's nice too is with the selection, the snap, you can put multiple locations across the spline and then use the drag handles to adjust those. So if you want to do it just by moving the drag handle, you can, or you can put hard values into that at the same time. So we're working right where the cursor is. I don't have to have a lot of movement there. I can just continue to adjust those points to generate that 3D spline. And so now again, when we go back to the surfaces that we create, you can see that we're using in this through curve mesh. This allows us to get that point at the very end, as well as then any of the curves that envelop the surface that we're doing here. So what's nice too is, again, just like we did before with the curves in that, you get a preview. So as I make selections, the system is showing me dynamically, what have I done? What am I picking the right things? Do I need help? You'll also notice that NX will prompt you. There's a queue and status line. There's also those alerts in the lower right. So if you're still needing things to satisfy it, it will start to provide detailed feedback. As I mentioned, the continuity is always important. We want to use the geometry around it so that everything is very smooth, very continuous across the entire shape. And as I mentioned, those two little extrusions, those were just faces that I could use to help me make sure when I mirror this geometry over, I have a good finish. Okay, so that gives you a little bit idea of some of those. And again, just remember, you know, with the basic, we have a couple different levels. There's basic, advanced, and studio. All of those are along the ribbon bar that you work in. So by having, we'll talk a little bit about packaging later, but that gives you access to all of those in there. Some things then again that are from the shape, right? So if we analyze this, what we want to see here is you can do the black line across there. And again, through that center plane, you see we have a nice smooth connection with those curves. Another way to check that is by reflecting images. So you can see, you know, based on that different image or with the black lines across there, we know back into the tail, we've done a good job, and across the center line, we've done a good job as well. So other things that might help you in checking quality is the section analysis. So you can go through. What this is doing is taking cross sections at set distance and just give you an idea. Again, as you look around there, are there areas, you know, on the side here, we see it's a little bit flat, right? Based upon the height of those edges there. So it just gives you some ways to take a look and analyze what you've created. Are they good? Is this what you're expecting? And go ahead and make changes from there. Those also are captured as part of the part navigator for you. So you can turn those on and off as you add or make changes. So you don't have to redo that work every time. So as we continue on, then a couple other things that we want to do is, you know, the nose, we really don't want it to come to a sharp point. So we're going to want to trim some material off there. And same thing on the boom in the back. We want to shorten that up. So you can use any of our curves to go in and basically trim those surfaces back. And then we'll fill those in with some of the, again, advanced tools that we have inside of the surfacing. So here, you know, both creation and trimming and editing, you know, you can trim those sheets back. Again, very simple. Select them, trim it back. You know, any of the details there, again, you have a lot of controls over how you want that to work. And you'll see that in many of the surfacing commands and curve commands. A lot of the detail, if you need it, you can do it. If not, those are things that you can collapse down. You don't have to get into. But some good surfaces here like to help close off. The end-sided is really good. So if you have something that's more of a, you know, in this case, like where we would think of on a regular aircraft is you have the radar and that up front. This end-sided is really good. You can either use the trimmed or the other option there. It'll use the curves that we have What's nice here is I just needed the opening, and then the other shapes, it will do the continuity perfectly into the nose of the aircraft. Back end, bounded plane is good. Another nice one that works really well is the fill surface. So any openings that you might have, those two, bounded plane is that, just a planer, but fill surface will do it for any, even on the contours, it'll help fill it in. Blending wise, you have the standard edge blend, but some nice ones are like the face blend comes in handy, because then you could do the rolling ball or the swept disc to create the blends on there. It just gives you more levels of control as you go in and down in some of the other commands that we're working from. So another thing that you'll see on the right hand side is this actually helps us to predict the commands that I need. So there's machine learning going on inside of NX. So as you work with it, starts to understand patterns, things that you're doing. So that list on the right hand is not just the last 5 or 10 commands. It's actually learning from you. What are the things you need? And it's proposing, hey, what might you need next? What would you want to do? So just know that's another area that we're focusing in on, expanding NX to do that. So this other area that we wanted to, you can have smart features. You can record those and store those into the reuse library. So something like this, I know that particular airfoil shape, I don't want to have to create that from scratch every time. So I can use that from the reuse library and drop that in. Then use that to, again, extrude and such. If we look at some of the other surface, it's knowing, hey, I need to close that off. So it prompted me for the section surface, right? So these are ones where we can use things like fillet bridge to create the shape. Instead of creating all these different curves and such, it will use the surface geometry then to close that off for me. So it'll understand the shape, the surfaces that we need, and again, speed that process along for you, improve that productivity in developing this. Now, the list that we're showing here is the last 10 features, right? So if you do want to go back to something, you can grab it, but just remember the ones on the right side is the command prediction. So it will not mimic what you see in the drop down at the top there. And again, this is all just to help you guys, go faster, right? Be able to understand your processes, your workflows, and things like that inside of NX. So you have things you can work in, as I mentioned, the surfaces. You can sew them into solid bodies. Any of the methods that you would like, you can work through that. In this case, I was sewing both the main body and the wings into a solid body. And so in this case, I can use our edge blend to do basically go through and do variable radius. So that area where it matches into the rest of the body, normally that's not just a set size around there. So in this, it's very simple to go in and use your point selection and basically tell it, here are the different sizes that I want as I work myself around that common edge between the wing and the body. So very easy. You can do arc length, percentage of arc length. You can give it a specific location. And with that, you can see that table, that listing there are the sizes. And again, if you check mark the preview, it'll show you as you're working, what does it look like? How is it doing? Again, if there's any issues with it, you'll get the alerts as you're working through that. So just a very, graphical, you're seeing all of that detail as you're putting the details in. And it's really helpful because that way, if you know the size, you can't put that size in, it's going to let you know right away. Right. So that gives us a little bit of an idea of, going through doing that development. We have obviously the show and hide. It helps you to turn things on and off quickly. You also have the layers, so we could put curves on certain sets of layers, surfaces a certain way. And just here, I'm just showing a real quick idea of, hey, if I still saw these and I wanted to make some adjustments, the edit and creation menu are the same. So I don't have to learn a different process. I just go back select the curves and make those changes to it. So that way we were working inside the context of the assembly. We see that we've been able to generate the shape. And so we could continue on with more using some more things from the reuse library and that, but I think that gives you a good idea up front using the curves, um, to generate, whether those be splines, whether those are sketches, uh, how you could do surfaces only, how you can do a combination of solids and surfaces to both, create, trim, do all of those as you work through. So the next step then is I just wanted to show a little bit more detailed change and how that impacts once we've done additional design. Because the point is we want to be able to create those surfaces, use those for detailed design, and not have to translate, recreate them, rework them, where some people might have that with disparate softwares. They're using something for either concept development or even some of the surfacing. They're generating that, then they translate it into their mechanical CAD system, and there can be poor surface quality. There can be a lot of things that you have to do here. You're working in a single system to do all of that. So let's take a look at the next phase of this, right? Is inside of this, we can go ahead and have, again, our segment where we want to drive, the right and left hand side of the part, right? The plastic parts. And so you saw me go through how to develop all of this with our advanced surfacing. We'll show you a little bit about then, how do we get that and go forward into the detailed design. So here we have a sub-assembly, and the way we drive this is we use something called geometry linking. So I can geometry link curves and surfaces and datums and all of that into this detailed component. And what that's going to drive us, as you can see here, then I can start doing the different work. I can shell it out. I can split the body. I can do Boolean operations, all of that, as well as, I geometry linked in some of the components that have to go inside this so that we can position them properly. We can put in the ribs that we need, the openings that we need on the case and that. But then when we're ready, we can go back to our surfaced body and now make changes to that. So just like we did before in that quick example, if you want to change that, maybe it's too wide, maybe we need a little bit more space, we can go in and select on the curves to make changes to that. So here, just like I did in the other one, I can use that to then use the drag handles to size it. Again, if you have a very specific location or a specific distance, go ahead and type those values in. But just, I was just using the drag handles to size it. And so what you're seeing is it's driving through and updating all of the features downstream. So that's the power, right? Is anything we worked on in the detailed design, all of that is updated accordingly and properly. And, the good thing is if for some reason you did something, you made a change that was too far out of the scope, the whole thing does not fail. It may have a feature and it'll leave them as part of the navigator, and then we can update. Maybe we have to select some additional geometry or we have to do additional steps. But the power is, the majority of it is it's going to update, with what you've changed from your concept modeling, your surface modeling into that detailed design. So that's really our power with NX, right? So a couple other things I just wanted to highlight from an advanced surfacing side is we won't go through the whole development of the helmet, but there's some things for editing as well as you saw some of the surface analysis. So we'll go through a little bit of our X form and our I form, how those tools can be used as well to make changes. So let's take a look at this example, right? So the beginning portion was very similar to what I did for the RC helicopter. But a couple other nice tools that we have here is, these are some shape tools. So the extension, this is our law extension. So rather than just a simple, hey, every edge comes off the same distance, we actually have control similar to like we did with the variable radius. I can put different locations on that and change those, right? We can change the distance, we can change the angle. So it gives us, again, way more flexibility and control over generating that extension surface. There's just some ways to extend that capability from what we had just out of the basic surfacing into some of our more advanced capabilities here. And so, you can see it's very similar as you walk through. What are the types of drag handles we have? What are some of the selections in the diagram, the block diagram itself? So in there, as we mentioned, a couple ones that come in handy is the X form. So X form is where we're creating that cage over the top. And so here you can set the parameterization. And so looks similar to the realized shape. So this X form works with any of the surfaces that we've created in the advanced surfacing. So we can go in, grab segments, a whole line, you can grab points, any of that, and start adjusting that shape. So even though underlying you had some curves, you had some splines, now I want to drag and push and pull. That's where X form and the I form come into play. So just some powerful tools for editing and changing and modifying that shape. So you'll see here, we'll do the I form next down on the neck portion. So instead of that being linear as it came down, I may want to put a little bit of contour into that. And so I form is where, think of just scribing these lines right on that surface. And now I'm able to use that to manipulate, move those, again, either by putting in a value or using the drag handle to move that around. So instead of it being, just a flat shape coming out of there, we're putting some contour to that. So the difference is between the X form and the I form there. And then finally, you'll notice inside of NX a couple different blends. So there's an aesthetic and then also this style blend. So again, more so by just picking the surfaces, it allows me a more, again, artistic shaping of what I want to do with that. So there's a bunch of different types. The types, how do you want? You can control depth and skew and things like that you wouldn't normally get in the edge blend. It just gives us some good power to make some changes there as well. And so you saw some of this before, but this highlights the fact that I didn't do a good job the first time around of setting the continuity between those, right? So I didn't select it, and you can see here with our section analysis, it's not really going to show well, right? If we go in and look at our reflections, we're going to see with the black line right away, those are not. You're seeing a sharp angle coming off of there. So we know I haven't really set all my continuity there, which is fine. You can easily then go back into those commands and change those values, right? So I don't have to redo anything. I don't have to delete it. I can just go back, edit the command, and now you'll see once we set that continuity, you'll have a nice interface between the top part of the helmet and then moving into the neck portion there. And again, our continuity section analysis will show that. So those are just some important things as you're going through and developing your external surfaces there. So that's a little bit stepping through the different areas of the surfacing. Again, creation wise, you get all the power and flexibility. Analysis wise, looking to make sure you have good surfaces, you get those as well. Those are pieces that are added to it as well. So it's really focused on reducing the barriers to innovation, right? We want to have a hybrid of modeling tool. It makes it very easy, effective, and efficient, and your user is very productive as they're generating their surfaces. So whether you use realized shape in conjunction with some of our advanced surfacing, you saw the power of what we have. It's all in one tool, right? So it'll take you from concept to detailed design. It's going to take out time. It's going to take out those translations, rework, and those things that you might run into. And then ultimately, how we can make changes, right? It's not just, oh, you created them, but the power to manipulate, change those, whether that be through your splines and sketches or using I-form, X-form to manipulate those. So those are just some powerful things that it adds to what you can do there. So step through real quick here. Mason can share any of these with you, but it's one thing for us to say it. It's another for having our customers back that up. And so companies like Zipline, right? So an innovative company looking at UAVs to help. And their initial was for medical delivery, but they're moving that into all different types of, package delivery and other things like that. But using our whole set of tools instead of having, separate pieces, that's what really helped them to create their designs, modify, optimize their designs as they went forward. And so somebody that's a small company, right? You might think, hey, can they use NX? Can they purchase it? Absolutely. It can be a smaller company or a big company that can use it. Another one is Buy Aerospace. So some of the things that they've done, they're disruptive, going to develop an all-electric aircraft. And the thing that they were able to do is because of the productivity, they didn't need as big an engineering team to develop the aircraft you see on the screen. They were able to do that with a much smaller staff, but having the power of what we went through today. So having all of those capabilities really made a difference for them. And so as we close out, then, as we're getting close to the top here, is just how do you get started? So if we look from a licensing perspective, I talked about these service levels. So we've gone through, if you're familiar with NX, you might hear some different terms previously, but now we've standardized on standard, advanced, and premium. Those are the three service levels. And what you can see from what I demoed today, the basic freeform comes with standard. The rendering, if you wanted some of the photorealistic rendering, that's in the advanced. But really, premium is what's going to give you all of the advanced freeform, the freeform shape, the surface analysis, all of those tools. So if you really want to accomplish the tasks that I demonstrated, premium is where that really has to happen for all of the surfacing. And then if you liked the realized shape or you wanted to do that, we do still have one package that actually includes, and again, these all build upon each other. It will build upon the premium and then add the realized shape is one option there. So these are kind of our traditional licenses that we've had. So one of those two would be the best for you if you were looking to do that. The other is for our software as a service. So we actually provide similar, you may hear this, Mason may bring this up, but our NXX is all of our software as a service. So NX still gets loaded onto your machine, but the distribution, the updates, and everything are run through our Siemens software service. So you don't have to go look for it and download it. It also has the cloud license. So this way, no matter where you're at, you can run that software. So we have the same. It's a standard, advanced, and premium. So in this case, the premium is the package that you would be looking for. The other piece then for some of these is our value-based licensing. So we have both for the NX initial licenses I show and our SaaS solution. And what this does is give you access to over 95 individual modules. So we package as much as we can into the bundles, but from there are some functions that are not included in every bundle. And so the value-based licensing opens up, instead of you having to buy those individually, you can buy the value-based and it will work with all of those ones. So there's things for electromechanical, industrial design and styling, some of the mechanical design packages. You see there's a lot of tools in there. But this would give you the realized shape. So if you're working with the SaaS solution, you could buy the premium with the value-based, and then you would have the flexibility to use all those tools. So from a learning perspective, we do have our Siemens Xcelerator Academy. So these are self-paced online training. And again, there's a big section there for industrial design and styling. So if you want to just do the servicing like I did, there are a number of chapters that will help you get started. If in addition you'd like to work on and learn the realized shape, the subdivision modeling, there's a whole section within that library as well. Other things, I know Mason, he talked about the ATA YouTube channel. We also have the Siemens YouTube channel. So there are a number of these for NX that you could go and look up and work with those as well to help get you going, in addition to what ATA has. And then the documentation, many times you think, well, that just tells me the functions, but there's actually videos in there that you can watch. Sometimes there are examples with that. It's not for everything, but there are ones there. So I strongly recommend you can open up the documentation at any time. It is online, so you don't have to install anything. You can just, if you're in NX, push the F1 key, it'll go out to the documentation. And then support. Obviously, ATA is your first line of support, but we do have a Siemens community for all of our different products. So here you could go out and get help from NX specifically. So if you're doing something and you wanted to ask the experts, this is a great place to go with the Siemens community. And then finally, again, you may initially talk to ATA from a first line support, but also know that our support center is there so that if you needed to look up, again, there are, again, the documentation, the videos, different help on different topics. You can go out and take a look at those. So really, to close out then, the value we talked about is, having a rapid concept development tool built right into NX. You don't have to go somewhere else to use that. That provides you a single unified modeling environment, no matter what type, whether it's faceted geometry, B-rep geometry, curve geometry, the subdivision geometry, all of that is in the NX environment. We have tools to deal with all of that. And so, as you saw with the licensing, we give you a flexible solution. We have all the tools, just which level of service would you like to work from? And then ultimately, as you're innovating, being able to make those associative design changes to your design is very important. So with that, Mason, I think we've gotten to the end. Might have driven it right to the top of the hour, but we do have a couple minutes if there were any questions or any comments at this point.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Again, I think we're right on time. So I have a question from one of our viewers. Would this generate something for the manufacturing to make the parts needed?
So sure, if you've done the surfacing and it's something, say it's an aluminum part, right, that you wanted to go right to machining, yes, you could take. So I showed the example with the RC. It was a plastic part, but say that were the aluminum part. That information, you can take those parts right from here and take those into NX CAM. So from that, you could machine it, do your 3-axis up to 5-axis machining. If you had parts that you had to turn and things like that, you could go right into that. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, but Ken, I also saw one of your other questions, which Brendan already answered. What are the advantage of your NX software compared to other similar software in the industries?
Okay.
Mike, you want to just do a quick overview? I can also dive in deeper if you want.
Sure. So where I would say is where we benefit, right, is again having the single environment that covers all of those. Many tools they say, yes, we have servicing, yes, we have this. They don't have the depth and the breadth of what we do in surfacing. Also, just some of those specialty areas, the subdivision modeling, Many times that's just a separate tool that somebody purchases. Then they're trying to read that information in. So back to my page where kind of what was the value, right? Those are some of the key things that help drive NX over the competition.
Yep, definitely. Ken, let me know if you want more details. Happy to schedule a call and answer them for you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
All right. I think that's it. Uh, yeah, once again, thank you, Mike, for your time and this excellent presentation. We'll get this uploaded later on to our ATA website and our YouTube channel.